President Obama putting out these new rules to cut power plant emissions 30% by 2030, mostly going to affect coal-powered plants across the country. So there is this big uproar in those coal states, bipartisan pretty much, where people are concerned that this is going to hurt jobs. What is your reaction to the proposal?
Well, I think we ought to look at it from a slightly different perspective. First of all, is climate change a real issue? Which I happen to believe it is. And what is that costing us in premature deaths and children with asthma and all those, and start to add up those costs. And then to say, well, what can we do? Does this really crater our economy? Is it going to have an impact on those mass coal-producing states? Yes, of course. Are there things we can do to mitigate that? Yes, but do we have an opportunity to create even more jobs? I mean, if you think about it, look at nuclear power. If you want to have a base power that releases no form of greenhouse gases while it's producing power, and has been shown in this country to be enormously reliable and safe, that creates incredible number of jobs, very, very well-paying jobs, as well as more jobs and more investment in the other forms of green energy. So we've got to look at the total picture. Even Texas, for instance, which is a heavily coal-dependent state, they are saying that they object to the rule, but then they're saying, but we have a big investment coming in wind. We see a potential for this to grow our economy too, wind and solar. So you've got to look at the whole thing and the trade-off.
Most Americans aren't paying that much attention to climate change. It's the 19th most important issue among 20 that were looked at by the EPA. I think you wrote about that. But it's only 14% of Republicans look at it as a significant issue. So how do you change that?
People don't relate to climate change. It's too big. It's too vast. What do I do about climate change? They do relate to weather, because that has a very direct impact on their life. And I think what you're seeing now more and more is people starting to make the connection with something's going on here. We're having ever-increasing severe storms, and they're getting even severe. We're having more droughts. We're having more floods. Something has happened that we haven't seen before, and it's coming at us pretty quickly. And so people are starting to say, gee, maybe we can slow this down. And again, if you look back over the history of the Environmental Protection Agency since it was started in 1970, from 1980 to 2013, our GDP grew very nicely, thank you very much. And yet we were able to, while we increased our population, increased our energy use, we reduced our amount of pollutants that we were putting into the air, into the Clean Air Act.
So why do you think it's so hard, and you have written about this, to find some sort of a middle ground here?
Everything now is looked at through a partisan prism. It's not how do I solve a problem or what is really the problem. It's how do I get another vote in my caucus? How do I get another percentage on my reelect? Not how do we solve the problem. I mean, it's not just climate change. You can't talk about immigration. You can't talk about really solving our budget deficit. Nobody's coming up with real solutions. There are plenty of solutions out there, and individuals and some of members of Congress and the Senate and the House both have come up with programs, but they can't seem to get any traction.
You really started saying that the GOP was going too far to the right as far back as the first few years of this century, way before the Tea Party was even in place.
The Tea Party, when it was originally formed, to the extent that the Tea Party has been formed at all, was all focused on the economy. It was on the deficit. It was on spending. And I was 100% in tune with them on those issues. And then it kind of morphed into not just the social issues, but then also saying, and oh, by the way, in order to solve the fiscal issues, we're going to sign these kind of contracts that say we will never, ever do anything, which totally hamstrings you in being able to really solve the problems that we face. So I see that, but we've seen the Tea Party itself being sort of captured by the more extreme elements within it. And I've seen them time and again when they lose an election saying, well, that's because we weren't conservative enough. And when they win an election, we need to be even more conservative the next time around. For the Republicans, it always used to be just about the economy and spending and balancing budgets, strong national defense, security at home, and a concern for our shared environment. But we didn't try to define what it means to be a Republican on every single issue you can think of, all the social issues, and that's where we've gotten ourselves into trouble. We have started to say you're either with us 100% or you're not with us at all, totally contrary to what Ronald Reagan's approach to the party was. But we've also then tried to define where you have to be on every issue. And I don't know about you, my husband and I have been married 40 years, and we're not on the same page in every issue, but we get along just fine.